babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets, with the people in the slums and the homeless bums, with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 rows to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and up and we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather, I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double, but nature gets the shit in the way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TV's whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ad, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
Alrighty, good night, good morning, good day, depending on what time you are out there. Yeah, you could be anywhere in the world. A lot of folks is chiming in from the U.S., a lot of folks chiming in from the U.K., folks chiming in from New Zealand, Australia, from the EU, from many places around. So big up to all of y'all. I appreciate your ears and also your feedback. You know, but this one I rightfully call the ballot or the bullet. You know, this particular time frame. What's up, Tia? I see you. Yeah, from Michigan. What's up, Michigan? Yeah, and Michigan has gun rights, you know, ironically enough. And, you know, I grew up in a state where guns, you know, access to guns are very limited, right? Washington, D.C. guns are very limited. But this point in history kind of illustrates what gun rights are for, you know, damn near, if you ask me. I mean, my opinion of it. We don't see these people like Trump and them so ready to send out National Guard to states that tend to have more freer gun rights, you know. And the bottom line is we know that blue states, Democratic states, have restricted gun rights to on average, and for good reason, if you ask me, it's not without a reasoning. It's not without a normal understanding of the fact that if guns are proliferated everywhere, it enables crime. But I think in the U.S., how we've been looking at it is we've been looking at crime as being a urban, aka color thing. Go to where the colored people lie or tend to work those jobs, and try to find out if they're doing some crime. But a lot of times we don't look at how guns are proliferated in the first place. A lot of the guns that end up in urban cities originate from states that have some of the least gun restrictions. And again, I grew up in a state where it was very limited, but we had guns everywhere. Criminals had guns. Guns being restricted in DC didn't stop any criminals from getting any kind of gun they could get, even guns that are federally banned, period. And I think right now, this is another moment where we could look at this, but not just look at restricting, but just look at Democrats and ask ourselves, have we been promoting lawful gun rights? Have we been promoting that? Because if you ask me, I think we're missing some safety elements there with it, that come with it. And when I look at the fact that we sell a lot of hate in the United States manufactures a lot of hate, political hate. We seem to see political hate as freedom of speech in the United States. And, I myself, I think it has consequences, the hate speech, which is usually masked as freedom of speech, of course, right? But and we know what that means. It's like, if people want to say, hateful things and shoot up people, right? We've had plenty of mass murders, right? Well, who's going to stop this? And this is even Republicans. Republicans have even said that more guns stop guns. More guns in good people's hands stop bad actors. So Republicans, even in this last shooting in Minnesota, right? Republicans have, in the past, whenever there was a mass shooter, what they have said is, hey, well, if more people had more guns, if we had more licensed, responsible gun owners, those mass shooters wouldn't get so far. That is literally what Republicans voted on every single time. Well, it doesn't seem to either resonate with Democrats. Maybe Democrats don't buy enough guns. Maybe Minnesota don't have enough guns. I don't know. Maybe Minnesota doesn't have enough guns. Maybe there needs to be guns in the churches now. Maybe that's what we need to do as blue states. See, and I think the moment blue states start promoting responsible gun ownership, right, with our values, together with our values, that means if you're a transsexual, hey, and you don't have a felony, you could go out there and get your ass some guns. Yeah, and get a license. That means if you're a minority, and you don't feel safe in your own country, you can go out there and get yourself some guns, right? If you're tired of being racially profiled or having crimes being committed against you because of your color or your ethnicity, hey, why not promote gun rights to people like that? If you're a woman and you're tired of rape, or you're tired of, all the things that come along with being a woman, hey, why not promote responsible gun ownership to women? I mean, maybe some of the men won't beat their ass so much, right? Like what you hear in a lot of states is going on, right? Maybe that is the answer. I'm just saying, take a look at it. But most of all, if all of those things aren't good enough for you, if all that reasoning is not something that you're with, if you're not with the minorities being responsible gun owners, and if you're not with the trannies, transvestites having a gun, making sure somebody doesn't kill their ass, right? If you're not for that, at least you could be for responsible gun ownership and the proliferation of guns if you have a president that dare say he will shut down elections in the United States of America. I mean, maybe that will be the one time you say, hey, you know what? We might need some guns, we might need some guns. And we're going to review that. I've learned a lot through looking into this about guns. Now, number one, I found out that pretty much as long as you haven't committed a crime like in Washington, D.C., and I'm saying state by state, you have to look at these laws state by state because they vary. The state laws vary. The federal law is the same, the state law varies. In a place like D.C., even if you don't have a license, the likeliness of you going to jail for an unregistered weapon that is not prohibited. Let's say it's a handgun, which if you had a license, it would be perfectly legal. If you don't have a criminal record, it's a misdemeanor pretty much in the courts. It's not going to stop you from doing anything, right? And I kind of like that. I kind of like that. I like that. If you haven't hurt anybody, if you haven't used a weapon for a crime, why should the penalty just for having an unlicensed weapon that is lawfully allowed if you have a license, why should you get a federal charge in a country that claims to uphold gun rights, the right to bear arms in the first place? Why should that be a felony just because it's unregistered? You see what I mean? I like that too. But let me see what's up. Tia said, Tia said the real intent of the Second Amendment was to ensure that states, army, militia would be maintained for defense of the state. The very language of the Second Amendment refutes any such argument. Okay. That was intended to guarantee every citizen an unfettered right to own any kind of weapon. Conservative Supreme Court. Yeah. There you go. It's been argued plenty of times, right? It's been argued plenty of times. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we have a president that has gone against the Constitution time and time again through executive orders, simply gone through it. And we're not only going to talk about the guns, the aspect of guns, because it affects every aspect of life. This man has done it on trade. He's done it on it, just everything, right? Now, it just occurred to me that if this guy does not want to have elections, if he's thinking about stopping elections in the United States of America, then he's likely also thinking about banning through an executive order somehow, some way, gun rights also. And don't say that Trump wouldn't do it, because Trump has been the first to do many things different, opposite of what classic Republicans or conservatives have done. Trump has done all kinds of things that people, would never thought anyone would do. What's up, Paul? You see what I mean? So in my view of it, there could be no more important time than to think about being a responsible gun owner in a blue state. As a Democrat. There's a lot of them that are. Kamala Harris is a responsible gun owner. Tim Walz, responsible gun owner, right? So there's a lot of Democrats that do believe in the right to bear arms, right, and possess arms, that don't promote it, So I think that's a good conversation for people to have right now. And because, hey, if the government can't stop January 6th, right? If the government can't stop January 6th, where else are we? Who else can they stop? Who else can they protect? If they can't protect the Congress, who else can they protect? You see, can they protect you if they couldn't protect the Congress? You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying? They're proving this. And again, I don't even believe that life walking around with guns is a fun life. I don't believe that, because I enjoy a life of walking around where guns aren't really, guns are regulated tightly in Denmark. When I leave the house, Copenhagen, I don't think about a gun violence. I don't even think about violence. That's the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about having a good time with my day. That's what I'm thinking about. But I do realize everybody's not the same. Everybody's not going to be the same. And we need to step up to make sure we can get a hold of this thing, this wild ride that we on, that Americans tend to be on. Let me see. Bit said, if one more old man comments, that's a big gun for such a little girl. Yeah. Like, yeah, there's a lot of predators out here. Oh, and some animals. Exactly. Look, why sit back and wait to be a victim? You see what I mean? Just to be able to call the police to find out that, oops, maybe it's not going to work out so well, you know? And again, if you're not a criminal and if you haven't been convicted of a felony, pretty much not having an unregistered firearm, just having it likely is leaning more towards the misdemeanor side of it. But again, I think it's a conversation people need to have, Democrats need to have about defending our communities. Seriously, like defending our way of life, because there are people in the United States of America that express day after day hatred for LGBTQ, hatred for women, hatred for other minority groups that have been, that have been contributing to the country in its foundational ways since the very beginning. Hatred for Native Americans, really coming off on some hatred shit towards other Americans, and the buck is going to have to stop somewhere. And in the United States, to me, it seems like it stops in two places: the ballot or the bullet. It's either going to stop at the ballot box or it's going to stop with the bullet, just like Malcolm X said. And you see already they're talking about the ballot, trying to stop the ballots, trying to gerrymander, right? Trying to threaten states into, trying to threaten people to not go to the polls, try to make voter registration more complicated, they're trying to actually affect the ballot. So right now, I think this is a great time to have this conversation as Americans. Like, we're not turning back. You elected somebody like Trump that crossed almost every damn line of what it is to be American. There's no going back now. The line was crossed. And people can't pretend that it wasn't crossed. This man sent out the U.S. military against American civilians, citizens, for political reasons, not to save our towns, but against us because of our purely our democratic right to choose our way of life. That's what he used the military for, so that there can be no going back. Now, before we get further, I want to give a big shout out to somebody, Malcolm Vance. Malcolm Vance, down there in DC. And I want everybody to check out. He's in Union Station, and I want everybody to check out what he said before we go further here. Let's see here. Where's he at? Boom. Malcolm's a vet, by the way, and a Navy vet, but also he does encrypt. What do you call it? Cryptology, right? That was one of his expertise. But let's take a listen.
I am honored to have him on Black Men Spy today. And with that, let's talk to Steve. Thank you very, very much for coming on this show. I understand that you're in Canada right now. I was just recently in Canada, but I find myself in Washington, D.C., standing with the veterans that are down here at Union Station, because this city is now occupied by U.S. National Guardsmen.
Hey, Malcolm Vance, he served his country. Let's take a listen to Malcolm Vance. It's okay to disagree, by the way, in the United States of America. And it's also to protect your rights with a gun if necessary. So here we go. Let's listen.
Law enforcement officers from 8 different agencies by my count. And I don't know about you, but to me, this is outrageous. What say you?
Now, Malcolm Vance is a vet, right? He has an extensive military record. Do you agree that the military actions that Trump has called on by the National National Guard, do you believe it's outrageous to send them to Washington, D.C., or are you against Malcolm Vance's view that it's outrageous? Put a 1 in the chat if you're for Malcolm Vance's view that it's outrageous. Put a 2 in the chat if you are against Malcolm Vance's view. Put a 2 in the chat if you're against his view that it's outrageous. I think it's outrageous, and I'm going with the vet on the screen on this one. On this one, I'm going with the vet on the screen. Okay, it's outrageous, and if you don't think it's outrageous, to hell with you anyway. I don't give a damn what you think. That's my right. My right is to say F you. Okay? And then point out some other people that agree with me. I believe it's outrageous. Malcolm Vance, what do you think? Do you believe it's outrageous, Malcolm Vance?
Well, yes, Malcolm, it is outrageous, and it is. There are no words for it, but as you pointed out, I'm in Toronto right now. You're in Washington, and it's always the case that um in anything on television, right, the camera can have a distorting effect. So, for example, right, the tornado comes, and right, you can have the national crew there on the trailer, and the trailer's been obliterated, and but the town is fine. Right.
Right. Right.
What's the scene there, right? Like, what is the feeling in DC as you're there? I mean, you're a retired senior chief in the United States Navy. I see you got a Navy 1775 hat on. Like, what's the scene in DC? It's a place
Yeah.
I lived for 7 years, but what is going on there?
Yeah, I lived here for 15 years with my family. And I have to tell you, what I'm seeing is today there is less forces out on the street around Union Station. Yesterday had Humvees, MRAP armored vehicles out here in shows of force. There are these three-man patrols like you would see in New York City, but the mall has over 100 soldiers stationed at various places. I'm finding out from people that live here that law enforcement, here's where they're not. They are not across the Anacostia River in the southeast, which is, a overwhelmingly black district of the city, overwhelmingly high crime rate down there. They're not. This is, to me, from what I'm seeing and talking with the veterans who are here and have been here every day since the National Guard arrived, this is just a show of force for television. They are in Georgetown, for God's sakes, right? Patrolling M Street, and having to pay $7 for a latte. So,
Yeah, Malcolm Vance, he says that it's outrageous that the National Guard is in Washington, D.C. It's outrageous that the president used military, National Guard, military, or whatever, against American people. But specifically, this case, he's in Washington, D.C. right now in Union Station, and he's supporting other veterans that are there protesting against the occupation, right, that Trump set forth. Now, the question is this. Malcolm Nance, I'm sorry, I said Vance before. Malcolm Nance, I'm sorry. He says that it's outrageous, that occupation, right? And I'm asking, he's a veteran, right? Cryptologist, has an extensive record in military, active duty service in several wars, right? That span over decades. Okay. Now, including, he was also in Ukraine, I believe. I forget what capacity, but it was of a Ukrainian military capacity also as a consultant. But here's the thing. Do you agree with his opinion that it's outrageous that the National Guard, how the National Guard is being used in D.C.? Put a 1 in the chat if you agree. If you believe that it's outrageous, put a 1 in the chat. If you do not, put a 2 in the chat. That's what I want to hear.
my problem with this whole thing, and I'm going to be going around with some of the veterans who are taking these four-man teams and are going up and having talks, trying to talk to the soldiers. Soldiers have been ordered not to speak to civilians. That's even more insulting here. So, you do have a feeling that this is a city that's occupied.
So now for the people that do not believe it's outrageous, for the people that put a 2 in the chat, right? What Republican states do you believe Trump should send the National Guard to help fight crime? I'm going to look in the chat and I'm going to call out some names. Listening Post, what Republican state that has high crime do you want Trump to send the National Guard to? SOS 2025, what state, Republican state that has high crime do you want Trump to send the National Guard to? Jason Gibson, what Republican state do you want Trump to send the National Guard to that has high crime? Peg Wright, what Republican state do you want Trump to send the National Guard to that has high crime? And I'm going to sit back and see. Bruce D, what Republican state do you want Trump to send the National Guard to that has high crime? I'm asking those people because those people were in support of Trump's actions towards blue states. Okay, Melissa, you said Florida. Okay, you want Trump to send National Guard to Florida? Okay. I see there's a lot of people that don't want to reply. The people that were for it, they don't want the same to happen in high crime areas in Republican states. That's what the trend seems like. And that's why we know that this is unconstitutional, because it's also against the Constitution to do it for political purposes, to outline only groups that have political affiliations to commit acts like this against. That's also unconstitutional, while bearing arms is protected by the Constitution. And in my view, if you're violating the Constitution, people should have the right to use arms to protect their communities, protect their states from these kinds of acts, these outrageous acts, That's my view of it. But let's continue. And also any other outrageous acts, even if it's not just by the president. Now, let's see here. Let's go into, is it this right here? Let's see here. I believe this is the guns. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Great question, but the answer is complex because gun licensing in the US is state specific. Federal law sets only broad guidelines, background checks, prohibited persons, while states vary widely in what guns require a license, how licenses work, and how long approval takes. Here's a breakdown. Gun licenses in the US, one federal baseline.
Just noticed when I asked the people that were for Trump sending out the National Guard to D.C., just notice none of them answered the question about red states where there's high crime, where governors have failed over decades to stop high crime. These eight out of 10 most high crime areas in the United States of America are in Republican states, and they have never sent any National Guard there. Right. So just keep in mind, these people, they never answered that question, so you can see they're two-faced. Their view is only towards Democrat high crime, never towards Republican high crime. That's generally what's happening. It's a couple of people that broke ranks there. I give you respect for that, for just keeping it real, at least being reasonable. But a lot of y'all are straight up hypocrites.
No general federal license is required to own most firearms. Instead, federal law requires background checks for purchases from licensed dealers via NICS, restrictions on prohibited persons, felons, domestic abusers, certain mental health adjudications. A federal firearms license, FFL, exists, but that's for businesses selling manufacturing guns, not ordinary owners. 2. State-by-state licensing overview. States with licensing for gun ownership, purchase ownership permits. Some states require a license or permit just to buy or possess firearms. Handgun purchase permits licenses. Illinois, firearm owner's ID card required for all guns, ammo. Processing can take 30 to 90 plus days. New Jersey, firearms purchaser ID for long guns, separate handgun purchase permits. Approval, 1 to 6 months, varies by police department. Massachusetts, firearms identification card for rifles, shotguns, license to carry LTC for handguns. Approval 40 plus days by law, but often longer. New York, long guns mostly need no license outside NYC. Handgun permits are strict, may take 12 plus months, with local discretion. Connecticut, eligibility certificate required for handguns, permits issued within 8 weeks, often longer. Hawaii, License required for each purchase. Process includes fingerprinting and police approval. Processing 40 plus days, often longer. States with licensing for carry, concealed or open. All 50 states allow concealed carry in some form. Permitless constitutional carry, no license required. 29 states, e.g. Texas, Florida, Arizona, Ohio, Tennessee. Shall issue states must issue if criteria met, e.g. Utah, Virginia, North Carolina. Process, typically 30 to 90 days. May issue states, discretionary, stricter, e.g. California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, Hawaii. Approval can be months and requires good cause in some jurisdictions. States with no licensing for ownership. Most states, especially in the South and Midwest, do not require a license to buy or own rifles, shotguns, or handguns. A federal background check at point of sale is usually the only requirement. 3. Process length, by example, state, guns requiring license. Typical processing time.
Illinois, all firearms.
30 to 90 plus days. New Jersey, all firearms, FPID and handgun permits, 1 to 6 months. Massachusetts, rifles, handguns, LTC, 40 plus days to several months. New York, handguns, 3 to 12 plus months. Connecticut, handguns, eligibility cert, 8 plus weeks. Hawaii, all purchases per license, 14 plus days minimum. Texas, no license for ownership, carry permit optional, 60 days applying. Florida, no ownership license, carry permit optional, 90 days if applying. California, handgun and assault weapon permits, safety certificates, several months. Hammer 4, key points. Handguns are the most commonly regulated, often requiring purchase permits, registration or licensing in stricter states. Rifles and shotguns usually require no license in most exceptions, NY, NJ, NJ, IL. Assault weapons bans, CA, NYNJ, CT, MA, WDA, DEIL, often require registration or prohibit ownership entirely. Wait times from same-day approval in permitless state to a year or more, NYC, NJ, HI. In short, if you live in a gun-friendly state, TX, AZ, FL, etc., you can buy most guns with only a background check, no license, little to no waiting. If you live in a strict state, NY, NJ, MHIL, expect licenses, extensive checks, and months of processing before approval. Would you like
Now,
Washington, D.C.?
Now, I'm only showing this because I find it useful for people to know, particularly Democrat states, people that live in Democrat states, right? People that are tired of Trump being bigoted, stoking racism, stoking bigotry, stoking misogyny, right? And protecting pedophiles. Okay. People that hate that kind of stuff, right? You need to know your gun rights straight up, because Trump may be the first president to try to ban guns. I'm just saying that. It may sound outrageous. I hope I am wrong. What the hell? But if I am wrong, I know how to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Oops, my bad. I know how to say that. I'm not into opinions and just holding opinions for long periods of time, even when I'm wrong. That's for stupid people that don't know how to grow. But what I'm saying is that Trump is an unprecedented president. He does things that no other president has ever done. He's challenged the Constitution in ways no other president has done for political reasons. And he's used the pulpit to stoke divisions in the United States of America, divisions that have consequences. As you can see, people get shot. You could see that, as we saw in Minnesota, right? In Minneapolis. People get shot for standing up for people to have the right to control their own body. Right? I mean, we've seen this. We've seen this. And this person who did that even hate Trump. You see what I mean? So we see how when you stoke these divisions, it's not necessarily good in a nation where guns are already heavily proliferated, you know. But let's continue. I just want people to know their rights, you know. Because it's not going to be just one issue you're going to have a problem with. It seems like it's many, like gerrymandering, trying to stop votes, voter suppression. And so today I'm calling this one Ballot or the Bullet. Either you stand up for voting rights, or you're going to stand up for Democrats possessing guns. to protect their rights in their states. Like, that's what I'm saying. You see what I mean? You don't have to possess a gun. You don't have to own one. But I'm talking about promoting responsible gun ownership. And in the United States of America, that means defending your communities, right, from tyrants also.
Washington, D.C. has some of the strictest gun laws in the United States, even stricter than most states. Here's the breakdown. Gun licensing in Washington, D.C. HAHAN, license requirement. All firearms, handguns, rifles must be registered with the Metropolitan Police Department, MPD. You cannot legally own or possess any firearm in D.C. without a registration certificate. This registration acts as the license to own the gun. 2. Types of guns. Handguns allowed but must be registered. Certain models, commonly referred to as assault style or high capacity, are prohibited. Long guns, rifles and shotguns.
When you listen to this part about DC, when you listen to this, understand the capital of the United States of America was failed to be protected during January 6th. The violent attack. And those people that attacked that capital came inside of the city called Washington, D.C. Just keep that in mind. And they could do it again. They could do it again.
Guns allowed if registered. Assault weapons and magazines over 10 rounds are banned. Machine guns and automatic weapons completely banned. 3. Process to get a license registration. 1. Eligibility check. Must be 21 plus, 18 with parent permission for long guns. No felony convictions, no domestic violence history, no serious mental health adjudications. 2. Firearm safety training course required. 3. Fingerprinting and photograph done at MPD headquarters. 4. Application submission for each.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Exactly. License, registration, and insurance, just like a car. It shouldn't be a big deal when blue states possess weapons.
Firearm. 5. Background check. Federal, FBI, NICS plus local records check. 6. Waiting period. 10-day waiting period before delivery of the firearm. 7. Registration certificate issued. Firearm is now legally owned, possessed in DC. 4. Carrying firearms in DC. Concealed carry license CCL is available but highly restricted. Issued by MPD. Must demonstrate safety training and pass background checks. DC was a may issue jurisdiction, but since Wren v. District of Columbia 2017, it effectively functions as shall issue. Open carry is not allowed under any circumstance. 5. Processing time, registration and license, typically 60 to 90 days, though delays are common. Concealed carry license. Law requires processing within 90 days of receiving a complete application. Summary for Washington, D.C. Every gun requires a license, registration. Handguns and long guns are legal if registered, but assault weapons and large magazines are banned. Process takes 2 to 3 months on average. Concealed carry is possible but regulated. Open carry is banned. Would you like me to put DC into the same state-by-state comparison chart I mentioned earlier?
Just notice how many Republicans, MAGA supporters, Trump supporters hate the idea of Democrats becoming responsible gun owners and loving their gun. Just take note of that, y'all.
Good question. Washington, D.C. is a special case because while the Second Amendment applies nationwide, local governments like D.C. and the states can still regulate how firearms are owned, registered, and carried. Courts have upheld many of these regulations as reasonable restrictions, even though the Constitution protects the general right to keep and bear arms. Here's how it works in D.C. Firearm ownership without a license in Washington, D.C. Now, 1. Legal requirement.
Now, close attention. Pay close attention to this because, of course, responsible gun ownership means registering your weapon, right? Purchasing it legally, these kind of things, right? And using it legally, using it in the way it's prescribed, right? Proper usage, okay? I'm sure Republicans can tell you what proper usage is because they seem to support in a lot of their states what is it called? Something defend your. What is this? What's that law? Put it in the chat, somebody. This stand your ground. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Republicans support stand your ground usage of weapons in the United States of America. I do. I'm saying Democrats should do that when their country, when the part of the country they live in is being invaded, right? They should stand their ground also with their with their weapons. But this is a key component here. This is a key component. You can still possess a weapon that's unregistered. Like, pay close attention.
In DC, all firearms, handguns, rifles, shotguns, must be registered with the Metropolitan Police Department, MPD. If you possess a gun without a registration certificate, you are breaking DC law, even if the firearm itself is not banned, like a basic revolver or shotgun. Number 2.
You hear that? You hear that? It's just a misdemeanor. Possession of unregistered firearms, misdemeanor in Washington, D.C. So just so you know, and why is that? It's because the Constitution guarantees people the right to bear arms. It's just that simple. So if you haven't used the weapon in a proper way, then that's just a misdemeanor if you're caught possessing. As long as that weapon is a weapon that is allowed otherwise with registration in Washington, D.C. So I just want Washington, D.C. residents to understand the law also, and other Americans, because the law is a little different. Just because you think it's going to be soft and you're going to walk into D.C. and you think that the gun rules are strict and all of this, hey, just keep that in mind. It's only a misdemeanor to possess an unregistered weapon, essentially, that is otherwise lawful if it was registered. Okay?
2. Penalties under DC Code 7252.01 and PACI 7257.06. Possession of an unregistered firearm, misdemeanor if it's a first offence and the firearm is not otherwise prohibited. Punishable by up to 1 year in jail and or a fine up to $2,500. The firearm will be seized and forfeited. Possession of an unregistered handgun, historically treated more harshly, can be charged as a felony depending on circumstances, especially if outside the home or connected with other violations. Penalty, up to 5 years in prison and fines up to $12,500. Aggravating factors, higher penalties if the firearm is carried outside the home without a concealed carry permit. The person has prior convictions. The firearm is a type.
And here's another fact. If you stop someone illegally, search their home illegally, search their body illegally, search their car illegally, and you was just happen to find a weapon in that home, in that car, on that body, that likely will be thrown out of court, the entire thing about a weapon. Inadmissible. Illegal search and seizure renders likely inadmissible.
Type that is outright banned in DC, e.g. assault weapons, magazines over 10 rounds, automatic weapons. Number 3, constitutional context. The Supreme Court case District of Columbia v. Heller, 2008, struck down DC's outright ban on handguns as unconstitutional. However, the court also said the Second Amendment is not unlimited and that governments can impose regulations like background checks, registration.
Yeah, Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizure, it still applies in DC, you know.
Registration requirements, restrictions on dangerous or unusual weapons. That means DC can legally require you to register any firearm you own, and failure to do so remains a crime. Summary. In DC, owning any unregistered firearm, even if it's a legal type like a revolver or hunting shotgun, can result in criminal charges. First offence, non-banned gun in your home, usually a misdemeanor, up to 1 year in jail plus fine. Outside the home/repeat offences, banned types can rise to a felony, up to 5 years in prison plus large fines. The Constitution protects the right to bear arms, but local registration requirements have been upheld as valid regulations. Would you like me to pull the exact penalty text from the DC Code statute language so you can see precisely how the law is Excellent and important question. Let's unpack this carefully. Searches, guns, and warrants in Washington, D.C. 1. The constitutional rule. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution applies in D.C. just as it does in the states. It protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. That means police generally need a warrant to search a person's home, car, or belongings. If they search without a warrant, evidence like a gun can be suppressed, thrown out, in court. Number 2. Exceptions.
There you go. So the Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizure, applies across the entire United States of America. And, in D.C., they've held it up because D.C. is one of the states that ironically used to be the state law essentially rendered no legal possession of guns at one time, essentially, outside of police or special, this kind of thing, special individuals, you could say, for security purposes. But typically DC had very harsh gun laws. But because Republicans wanted to break that standard, you know what else happened? Because they wanted to break that standard, what happened is that to balance that, DC had to hold up the Fourth Amendment illegal search and seizure even more stricter to compensate, to balance out the realities. You see, you can't proliferate more weapons, right? At the same time, which is a constitution. If the Constitution says you have the right to bear arms, you can't stand strongly on one constitutional right, and then when it comes to the second constitutional right, which goes hand in hand with the first one, first and fourth, right? Second and fourth, all those things go hand in hand. They're staples of the Constitution. How can you stand up strongly for one constitutional right, and then all of a sudden, when it comes to number 4, illegal search and seizure, you're not for that? No. We want to find ways around that. No. So essentially, your home is off. That's a place that is a sanctuary. You're not allowed unless you give them the right consent, right? Your car, same thing. No consent, you don't have the right. Whatever else you find in that, likely inadmissible in a court, in your home, or and it's happened plenty of times before. I remember, I forget the gentleman's name in DC. It was a big case in the 90s. Somebody was breaking into a man's home, right? And the man had a firearm that wasn't registered. And the man shot and killed the person that was hopping over the fence in his backyard. And Republicans made a big deal out of it because of who the person was. He was Democratic aligned individual, well-known individual in politics, right? Now, or in the political sphere. Well, but actually, the court sided with him in his right to bear the arm, even though it was not registered. You see, and Republicans didn't like that at that time. But let's play along with this.
Exceptions to the warrant requirement. Courts recognize several situations where police do not need a warrant. Common ones in DC include consent, if you agree to the search; plain view doctrine, if an officer sees a gun in plain sight during a lawful stop; search incident to arrest, if you're lawfully arrested they can search you and immediate surroundings; exigent circumstances, if officers believe waiting for a warrant would pose immediate danger, e.g. someone could be harmed, evidence destroyed; stop and frisk, Terry stops, if police reasonably suspect you're armed and dangerous they can do a limited pat-down for weapons; automobile exception, vehicles can be searched without a warrant if police have probable cause to believe evidence or contraband is inside.
Amara 3.
What happens if police search without justification? If officers violate the Fourth Amendment, your defense attorney can file a motion to suppress the evidence. If the court agrees the search was unconstitutional, the gun, and anything found during that search, is inadmissible in trial. This is called the exclusionary rule. Example, if DC police entered your home without a warrant and without an exception, found a gun, and charged you with unlawful possession, a judge could throw out the gun as evidence. Without it, the case usually collapses. Number 4, DC specific notes. DC follows federal constitutional law here. There's no special exemption. Courts in DC are strict on unlawful searches because of the high stakes around gun laws. Many cases have been dismissed when evidence was obtained improperly. Summary: in DC, police need a warrant to search you or your property unless an exception applies.
Right. Okay. So there we have it. Let me look in the comments. Somebody said, this was Old Driver, said, I seen a few people saying Trump is dead. Well, I said he's going to be dead. He's going to be dead soon, or he's going to be rendered incapable of serving. You know, Vance is going to become the president very rapidly, very soon. And my guess is before the holidays, before Christmas, because they know every day. And they had this idea, in my view, from the beginning. From the beginning of this term, they knew Trump would get too old. That's baked in their plan. Elon Musk, and other tech bros and these type of folks that Trump surrounded himself by, they all were aware the plan was to let J.D. Vance become the president. So in my view, I made this prediction that Trump is going to get sick before this holiday, because every day that he's the president, the Republicans are losing votes rapidly. Like they're sinking, they're bleeding votes right now, Republican. And it's because the people are pissed off. And we're going to show you some documentation of that. Now, so J.D. Vance, Trump is going to get sick. They're going to say it. One of the last acts that Trump is going to make before he turns over power is to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, because Maxwell definitely wants her out of jail card, and she is going to be pissed if Trump doesn't give it to her, because no one else will. J.D. Vance and whoever else takes power will distance themselves from Trump, although they will continue to protect the Epstein files. They will continue to hide them because they know what is inside of it is likely espionage, which is inside of it, which explains a lot of Trump's behavior as the president, him aligning himself with Putin and others, not just Trump, but others, maybe not just Putin aligned, but others that have been blackmailed. They don't want you to know how many aristocrats have been blackmailed or are security risk because of this compromising Epstein stuff, right? So they want to try to keep it hidden. American people won't be free as long as those files are hidden, right? And the victims will never see justice as long as every name is not released. They will never know justice. You know, the U.S. is not going to move on smoothly without the release of these Epstein files. And so that's my prediction. But let's move on from there. The Republicans are taking a shellacking right now, just like I've been saying. And it's news. It's front and center news, right? Europeans are starting to come out against Trump in other ways. The Portuguese president, he came out 2 days ago and just said, yeah, it's obvious Trump is a Russian asset, right? So when a president of an EU state, EU country says that, it's generally going to go send ripples across the EU. You see, that means the position is no longer a good faith position with the United States. They no longer have the expectation that Trump is not compromised by Putin. You see, that's a big shift. American people need to know that, because while the EU can protect its economy and protect its people and protect its trade partnerships across the globe, including with South America, including with Canada, including with Africa, including with Asia, including with China, India, the EU is preserving their relationships. If you want to order some shit from Temu right now, you can. If you want to order some shit from India right now in the EU, you can. If you want to order it from Canada, you can. There's none of these tariffs. It's only Americans that put up with these tariffs, and it's been because of MAGA voters. MAGA voters elected a president that created havoc to their own population. Now, finally, the courts have chimed in.
White House and its agenda, and a big win, I would say, for everyone else. A federal appeals court has just ruled that Trump's sprawling tariffs are unlawful and invalid. course, the president has been obsessed with imposing his willy-nilly tariffs on Americans. In fact, it has been the central plank of his entire economic agenda.
Look, the same thing with the tariffs is a constitutional issue. It states in the Constitution who can issue tariffs and how. And it's very little right is given to the president. But of course, that's another constitutional citizen right that Trump has trampled on. It's not just these other things. It's that too.
Now, it has been wildly unpopular. It's polling underwater. It is costing consumers and corporations billions and billions of dollars by the day. It's stopping the Fed from cutting interest rates by driving inflation. It has, on the whole, been really bad economic policy. And most of the discussion of these tariffs have been focused on that. But there's also something about these tariffs, which is that from the jump, they've been pretty clearly illegal. I mean, think about it for a second. Can the president just by himself create tariffs that raise hundreds of billions of dollars with zero congressional input? These tariffs are a violation of the law that they purport to use as the justification, and a violation of the spirit of the Constitution of a country which was quite literally founded on the belief the executive cannot unilaterally just impose a tax without representation, specifically tariffs. Elections, we're starting to see the 2026 landscape shape up, including the Senate, where we learned about a big new Republican retirement today, which may not be that surprising considering Trump-aligned candidates are running in an environment like this.
So right now, what we just saw in the report is that we haven't seen inflation at all.
Now, this is Republicans out there explaining to the constituency in their own states shit that is just utter lies. I mean, they're literally have no problem with lying to the residents and the citizens of their state on international television. The world, behold, Africa, behold, Asia, behold, Europe, behold, America, behold, Republicans lying to citizens in their own states.
That was the question.
That wasn't a question.
So if there was inflation, you would see it.
That Congress.
Now, here's what I want to know from the chat. The people screaming in the background, who pays the tariffs? Are those residents of that state? If you think they're residents of that state, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't think they are and you think something else is going on, put a 2 in the chat. Can I call some names out? More darkness. Were those citizens of that state saying who pays the tariffs? Right? Matt Clements. Were those people who live in that state saying who pays the tariff? Were they saying that to their representatives? Let me know what you think. Let's play it again. Mark, look, y'all, what is this, Mark? So you say those are not citizens of that state, Perry, I'm sorry, Perry, Washington. You're saying that those are not citizens of that state saying who pays the tariffs? Okay, you can believe that if you want.
So if there was inflation, you would see it.
That congressman speaking in Alabama had to sneak out the back door to avoid his angry constituents, and he never answered the question of who pays the tariffs. Meanwhile, in Maine this week, Republican Senator Susan suddenly vulnerable and facing what would be a well-funded opposition, faced public backlash at a ribbon-cutting event.
Let us get through this brief ceremony to celebrate something that really matters to this historic community.
What about guns? What about guns up in here?
Okay, so who is that in the background saying shame, shame, shame? Are those residents and citizens of that state saying shame, shame, shame? Or is that something else? If those are residents and citizens of that state, put a one in the chat. If that's something else going shame, 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 like a recorded message or some shit like that, put two in the chat. More Darkness, you can chime in on this too, More Darkness. Are those real people saying shame, 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 or is that a Democrat hoax? Let's hear it again. Let's hear it again.
Matters to this historic community.
What about Gaza? What about Gaza?
There's something really funny about the local ribbon cutting with the soundtrack of shame, shame, shame. Adding to the bad news for Republicans was this week's surprising results in a special election in Iowa, where a Democrat won a deep red district by double digits, breaking a Republican supermajority. So given that context, it's not entirely shocking to learn that Iowa's Republican Senator Joni Ernst is retiring after 2 terms. Ernst had always pledged to serve just 2 terms, but I'm sure her interactions with her own party's base likely didn't provide much incentive to stick around either. She first earned their ire this term when she publicly wavered on supporting former Fox News Weekend host Pete Hegseth to be Trump's Secretary of Defense, though she did ultimately vote to confirm him, and he's been doing a bang-up job, but not before her MAGA credentials were thoroughly scrutinized by all the usual suspects. By the time that storm blew over and Ernst had returned home to defend Trump's big unpopular bill, you could tell her heart just wasn't in it anymore.
So when you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible. So they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So for heaven's sakes, folks.
I mean, I will say,
Whew, I got to hear that again. Damn, she gave some really riveting perspective there. She, from her perspective, believes that, oh, well, we're all going to die.
It's not entirely shocking to learn that Iowa's Republican Senator Joni Ernst is retiring after 2 terms. Ernst had always pledged to serve just 2 terms, but I'm sure her interactions with her own party's base likely didn't provide much incentive to stick around either. She first earned their ire this term when she publicly wavered on supporting former Fox News Weekend host Pete Hegseth to be Trump's Secretary of Defense, though she did ultimately vote to confirm him, and he's been doing a bang-up job, but not before her MAGA credentials were thoroughly scrutinized by all the usual suspects. By the time that storm blew over and Ernst had returned home to defend Trump's big unpopular bill, you could tell her heart just wasn't in it anymore.
Her advice to her residents and the citizens of her state is, oh, well, we all gonna die. And she's talking to Republicans that way. Listen to this. This is crazy.
So when you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible. So they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die. So for heaven's sakes.
Now, look, for those of you that may not know this, just to explain, this is one of the differences between Western democracies and the United States of America. Like, for example, Denmark. When you step foot inside of Denmark, you are covered for emergency health care, period. No matter who you are, resident, not resident, illegal alien, whatever. And there's a reason for that. It's called public safety. Okay? To keep everybody else safe, we do the bare minimum here, right? And it could be for numerous reasons. Now, after the emergency care portion of your stay is finished, then if you're not a resident or if you're not a citizen or resident of Denmark, then you don't have the right to the rest of the care portion, right? That's how the law works. But here you have a Republican inside of the United States. Now, here's the trickery behind it. They're not lowering the taxes. They're not lowering taxes. So, like she's claiming illegals are getting, access to Medicaid or, Medicare or health care. She's claiming that illegals are getting access to it. But notice, she's not claiming that they want to cut down federal taxes. She's not claiming that at all. That's not what she's planning on doing. So when they reduce all of that, they're not going to cut your taxes. You see what I mean? And there could be several reasons why you might want a person to get health care, have access to emergency health care. What if a person is sick and has a biological disease flowing through their body that could contaminate other people? Would you like to know? Would you like to know that? Or would you just want the person to be sick, coughing around you and not knowing why? Is that what you would want? Wouldn't you want that for citizens and for anybody that's just walking around in the public areas, outside, on the bus, on the subway, interacting with other people? Wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to know? Doesn't that save you money to know? Would you rather have 1 million people get infected by something that could have been stopped if you just checked 1 or 2 people? You see where I'm going with this? Right. So, yeah, it's obvious that they had no plan on making taxes cheaper for the average American citizen. It's obvious. So that's not her goal here. Her goal is to scapegoat people without bringing any data to the table. Right. So let's go. Her constituents don't like her. Her constituents hate her.
For heaven's sakes, folks.
I mean, I will say we have an opportunity to fact check a lot of people on their show. She's right. But does that sound like someone who's eager to stick around in Trump's Washington?
Yeah, she is right. Everybody's going to die sometime, even Trump.
And Ernst isn't the only Republican senator stepping aside. Tom Tillis, North Carolina, another frequent target of the MAGA base, has also declined to run next year. Now, despite some extreme gerrymandering, North Carolina is one of the closest swing states nationwide at the statewide level. And right now, flipping Tillis' seat is probably the top target for Democrats, who have already recruited their popular 2-term ex-governor Roy Cooper to run. Any path the Democrats have to retaking the Senate likely runs through North Carolina and Iowa. So these retirements are enormous deals. You could certainly make the case that Trump is, at the very least, contributing to the retirements of 2 relatively popular incumbents in his own party. Democrats are hoping Trump will also contribute to the losses of the Republicans who run to replace them. You see, there's a paradox in this age of politics, which is that Donald Trump consistently outperforms Trumpism, Trump-like candidates. His political fortunes have not been replicated by many of the Trump-like candidates who win primaries and run in genuinely contested races. And we saw this way back in 2017 during Trump's first term, when the MAGA former state Supreme Court Justice Roy Moore lost in deep red Alabama. There's also Doug Mastriano, Confederate reenactor and TV Dr. Mehmet Oz, who both lost in Pennsylvania. Former Heisman Trophy winner and Celebrity Apprentice loser Herschel Walker, who lost in Georgia. Blake Masters and Curry Lake each lost twice in Arizona. And finally, who can forget Mark Robinson, North Carolina's former lieutenant governor, the self-proclaimed black Nazi.
Yeah. Okay. So y'all know who Mark Robinson is, right? Mark Robinson is the black Republican, self-proclaimed black Nazi, who he has this speech where he says African Americans that they should be the ones paying reparations, actually for slavery. That he says African Americans should be the ones paying reparations. That's Mark Robinson out of North Carolina. He was running for governor. I think he was the lieutenant governor for some time, but he's out of pocket now anyway. But not only that, he's another hypocrite, because while he goes out to MAGA people in North Carolina and talks this big anti-LGBT game, the dude was a member of a transsexual porn site where he was an active member of it, in there logging in, watching trans porn. Like straight up, that he got cold busted. And a lot of these conservatives in the Republican Party, this is what they do. They talk big about, something that they're not. They pretend like they're, I'm going to tell you, me, myself, I'm not anti-LGBT. I'm not anti-immigrant. I'm not anti any of this typical stuff. Why would I be? That would make me an idiot, right? Because I'm anti-slavery. I believe you don't have the right to control other people's bodies, period. Right? Now, but having said that, I have a conservative lifestyle myself. You could call me a conservative. Actually, I am. I got a conservative lifestyle myself, right? What a lot of these Republicans would consider conservative. You see what I mean? I believe in gun rights. I'm basically what they call a heterosexual male. I raise my kids. I'm strong on family. I come from a family with a mother and a father. These kind of things, right? But I'm not out here promoting the anti-LGBT legislation, but a lot of these Republicans are down low homosexuals, men, promoting anti-LGBT laws, like flat out, and they're getting busted all over the place. A lot of them are pedophiles too, which is another interesting topic. A lot of them claim to be conservatives, but will snatch up a little girl at a moment's notice because they can't control their little conservative urges. Those are phony conservatives. You know, those are phony conservatives, people that are still looking in their own, scared of their own shadow and shit, can't control their sexual urges, have to go out there and lie to their own families and then sneak out at night after having kids at home, being married. Then they go sneak out at night and have some other kind of sex that they don't want people to know about, cheat on their families, cheat on their wives, and then lie and go out there and, are involved in homosexuality, right? And then the other ones that are pretending to be conservatives, and then they go out there and grab up the first young girl in their town who looks like them from the same ethnicity as them, snatches her up and rapes her. You see what I mean? This is what a lot of this conservative shit truly is, phony. And then who did they give the tax break to? The top earners. That's who they give the tax breaks to. I mean, folks. Let's go.
Let's say a Democratic president had absolutely no respect for Congress, a co-equal branch, appropriating funds, right to determine tariff policy. You'd be saying, what is this? This isn't what the Constitution wanted. Let's say that a Democrat was deploying the yes, you would.
No, I wouldn't.
Then you're a bad constitutionalist.
Oh,
Let's say that a Democrat was deploying the National Guard to cities controlled by.
Now listen to how listen to how he laughs about everything. He is laughing at you maggots because you're so stupid. You believe what he says. You just believe it. You just believe it because you hear it on Fox News. You just believe it. And they laugh with impunity because they know you ain't going to do shit about Trump at all. You're not going to do shit. What you are going to do is approve the tax break to the billionaires. That's all you're fucking going to do. And anything domestic when it comes to pushback against Trump, like get some of those Fed dollars to help clean up this disaster zone that this flood committed, you ain't going to do shit about it, you Republican maggots. And you definitely ain't going to pick up a gun to do anything about it, you Republican maggots. You're not, because you don't. And if you did, you would. If you were that type, you would have done it already. So you're not that type. Your gun is not to protect your rights or your federal dollars. It's not. Your gun is simply for hatred and bigotry of other people who you should stop trying to control because you don't control other people's bodies. Slavery is over. Learn how to control your goddamn body. And your tax dollars. Learn how to control it because you guys are poor. You're begging from Democrat blue states always to fill in the federal budget. You're begging them. At the same time, you're voting for people that hate you or that are anti-education in your own states, anti-health, anti-family in your own state in every other way. What's the point of saying you're conservative when you don't want poor white families with a man and a woman in it with kids to be able to afford goddamn school and an education or a home, have a job that pays? You don't even support the poor white folk. This is crazy.
By Republicans. Let's say that a Democratic president was shaking down private businesses and saying, give me 10% of Intel and maybe I'll make things more favorable for you.
That's not shaking down.
Yes, it is. Let's say that he made you comment.
Right. Trump went out there and pulled a socialist move right out of the cap, from Putin. Pulled it out of Putin. It's Putin that probably suggested it to him. And the Republican maggots ain't saying nothing. They're like, yeah, that's right. The government should own part of Intel. They should own that business. Oh, wow. And guess what? They're not even pissed off about it. If Biden had done something like that, whatever happened to that argument on communism or anti-socialism? Whatever happened to that argument? You see, whatever happened to being against collective bargaining? Whatever happened to that argument? So these maggots, they don't have a pot to piss in right now, and they know that. They are looking to get around this next midterm election, because they know every way, shape, and any way possible, any way to be seen, any way you want to look at it, they know that they are completely cold busted. They have zero values on anything they talk about. Zero values. They do not stand for the United States of America or the United States of American citizens. They are completely, utterly corrupt hypocrites. That's all they are. And they know this, and they know they're going to lose big in these midterm elections. And yes, they will fight to stop people from being able to vote. That is how anti-American these people are. If they will use their guns for anything, it will be to stop people from voting. So just keep that in mind when Democrats review gun laws. And I'm not saying I'm for all of this crazy shit, because it doesn't take a lot of crazy shit. But I think communities that are responsible gun owners that are in blue states, I want to give you a round of an applause. And I want to encourage young people to get out there and run for some of these offices too. Don't think that this somebody who just don't think that these people, don't give them more credibility than they deserve when it comes to public service. You see, we need people that are going to serve the communities, at least love the communities that they come from, to serve in office. We don't need people that just want to get over like Ted Cruz, get a check and then disappear and go to Cancun while his state is flooded. We don't want people like that. We don't want people that just turn a blind eye to corruption on all levels, and just say they're doing it because, hey, I got to be anti-immigrant, or I got to be anti-LGBT, or I got to be anti-poor people. I got to be anti-homeless. All that anti shit is just anti-American. It's just anti-American. You may as well say you hate the United States of America and you want to destroy it, But on that note, y'all, these elections are primary coming up, and you got to ask yourself, how is it that they can actually stop the removal of Trump without tampering with these elections? How is it that they can keep the Epstein files hidden if these elections are allowed to go through? Just think about that question. Just think about that question. So this might be the most important election in the last 100 years in American history. The ballot, or the bullet. The ballot or the bullet. I suggest everybody go out there and register to vote. Register to vote if you want education accessible for all. Register to vote if you want health care accessible for all. Register to vote if you want everyone to make a decent wage that allows them to at least pay their damn bills when they have a job. Register to vote and take back your country. Don't let these people make you think that they're just somehow inherently better than them, better than you, because they are not at all. They are just sitting there claiming something that they have no right to any more than anybody else. And that is the right to be respected in your own country, the United States of America. So on that note, I'll be back to y'all. I know this is the late night crew. I'll be back a little bit earlier today, this evening, this same day, in like 7 hours from now. So y'all be good. I appreciate y'all. Register to vote. Release the Epstein files.
want more. Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day and every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see. Feel we on the call and up and we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather, I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double, but nature gets the shit in the way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TVs whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't fear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.